Isekai.
The Rebirth of the Malicious Empress of Military Lineage. Chapter 66, Gui Momo's Death. In the gloomy and eerie woodshed, there were sounds of the occasional mouse climbing around as if it was eating the firewood, and coming with the movements of the night, it made one's heart cold. Gui Momo was all alone in the corner. After so many years, even though she was just a Momo, the second and third households were willing to give her face because she was favored by Shen Miao, and her life in the Shen residence was considered quite good. Sometimes, Gui Momo's life was even better than some of the wealthy families. It was easy for the frugal to become extravagant, but very difficult for the reverse process to happen. She was not used to days of suffering, much less sent to the woodshed like those lower-ranked maids. The thin clothes that were worn could not resist the cold at night, but her heart was colder than her body. Gui Momo's heart was filled with fear as she thought about the 4 maids that were initially locked up with her. Shen Yu's maids were fed with mute medication, and it was not known if they had survived it, and Shen King's maids were directly sold to 9th-ranked brothels. She could not help but worry about her fate as Ren Wanyun's methods were indeed ruthless. Gui Momo did not think that Ren Wanyun would easily let her live on, because not only did she witness Shen King's scandal, she also played an important role in this matter. The one who should have been harmed was supposed to be Shen Miao, but, in the end, it was Shen King who was defiled. How would Ren Wanyun spare her easily? Just as she was thinking, the sounds of footsteps were heard, and were particularly clear in the silence of the night. Gui Momo's body stiffened, and fearfully looked towards the direction of the door in the darkness. There seems to be hope yet also despair. What was behind the door? Was it the people that Ren Wanyun sent over to silence her? Or perhaps there was still an opportunity to live? The footsteps were unhurried, but we're like a holy charm that hastened one's death as it hits Gui Momo's heart. Her plump body was already muddy, and sweat kept forming on her forehead as her body was swaying like a pendulum. Zia. The door was pushed open. The person who came in had a bluish-green lantern, and that color was already somewhat strange, and seemed to be an evil spirit that would suck out the life of others. Gui Momo looked up trembling, and saw a person clad in a white cloak at the door. She walked in slowly, and closed the door. There was only that greenish-blue light from the lantern that emitted a ghastly glow. The person who came in finally unclasped her cloak, and revealed a delicate fair face. It was Shen Miao. The young female was slender, and that greenish light seemed to have made her gentle facial features look strangely white. The brows were light, but were more like a death messenger from the netherworlds that made people dare to not look directly. Gui Momo was momentarily stunned before she suddenly called out in surprise, "Young lady." Shen Miao placed the lantern on the floor, and walked unhurriedly to Gui Momo before squatting down in front of her. She smiled gently, and said, "Is Gui Momo still alright? Young lady, you finally came." This old servant knew that young lady would come over to save this old servant. Young lady's heart has always been kind, and definitely would not just sit by idly, and remain indifferent. As if she had caught a life-saving straw, Gui Momo grabbed onto the ends of Shen Miao's dress desperately with tears coursing down her old cheeks, as if she had suffered grievances beyond her heart and soul, and Shen Miao was her most trusted family. Shen Miao swept a glance at Gui Momo's hands that were grasping tightly onto her dress, and said with a gentle smile, "It seems that Gui Momo has suffered a lot here." Gui Momo was stumped for words, and only looked carefully at Shen Miao's expression. Shen Miao's smile was gentle and warm, and her expression was considered calm without any waves of emotions when saying these words. Gui Momo was appalled to discover that she was unable to see what Shen Miao was thinking at all, even after accompanying this young lady for so many years. She said, "This old servant has been serving young lady her entire life, and is nothing but loyal to young lady." That day in Wolong Temple, this old servant accidentally and inadvertently saw it. "Young lady, this old servant is innocent." "It seems like Gui Momo sees me as a hope," Shen Miao fretted, "but how could I save you in this residence? Who would listen to my words? Moreover, what ability do I have to reverse Eastern Courtyard's orders?" "It is not so. Young lady definitely would have a way." Gui Momo became anxious after hearing this, even though she knew that Shen Miao's words were reasonable, as in the entire Shen residence, the second and third household only treated the first household well on the surface, and since Shen Xin and wife were often not in the Ding capital, it would not be possible for Shen Miao to be of use. But, to survive, Gui Momo could only grab on to Shen Miao, and was reluctant to give up. She said, "Young lady can go and beg old Furen, and if that does not work, young lady can write a letter to master so that master can write back to the residents." They would not dare to not listen to master's words. Gui Momo's eyes brightened up as she felt that she had found an excellent idea, and looked at Shen Miao with eyes full of hope. But she only saw Shen Miao lightly laughing before shaking her head, and said slowly as she looked at her, "Father's words indeed can save you, but on what basis?" Gui Momo was stunned. "Why would I need to use so much effort and energy to run to and fro for a lowly servant?" Her voice seemed to contain slight ridicule, and under the glittering lights, it was as if she did not put the person in front of her into consideration. Gui Momo suddenly panicked as she did not expect Shen Miao to say so. She watched Shen Miao grow up, and even though she treated her coldly recently, it was only because of her childish tantrums. Gui Momo knew that Shen Miao had a soft heart, and on that day in Wolong Temple, she even opened her heart to her, which meant that she wanted to put this Momo in an important position again. Why would there be such a change in expressions? Could it be that someone had said something to Shen Miao? Gui Momo's brain moved. It must be those two maids that spoke, Gu Yu and Gings. They naturally liked to go against her, and now that she was thrown into prison, those two girls would hit a person who was down, and said something to Shen Miao. She said panicky, "Young lady." This old servant had followed young lady for so long. This old servant has watched young lady grow up since birth. After so many years, master and Furen were not always around, and there were only this old servant and young lady relying upon one another for survival. Speaking till here, she choked a bit, as if to display extreme sorrow. Young lady still talked the last time about that year when young lady had a fever at night, and the physician had yet to come after a long time. This old servant ran out into the rain to look for a physician for young lady, and because of this matter, in this old servant a lingering illness was formed. Every word and sentence was talking about the love and camaraderie of those years. As Gui Momo spoke, she cast glances over at Shen Miao. The family in the first household of the Shen family, no matter if it was Shen Xin and his wife or Shen Kaiyu and his younger sister, were people who valued relationships. Perhaps it was inherited from their military lineage, where one would be grateful for a kind act and seek to repay it. Now Gui Momo was also bringing out this kind of act to request for repayment, and could only look at Shen Miao hopefully. However, amid the light, the young female head was laughing lightly, and there was no trace of the expression of being touched. and was like she had listened to a rather interesting story instead. She said softly, "Gui Momo treated me well at the beginning, and how did our first household, and I treated Gui Momo." Gui Momo hesitated for a moment, but still said, "Furin and master treated this old servant extremely well. Young lady also treated this old servant extremely well, be it inside or outside the house. This servant had enough face, and the monthly allowance is also generous. This old servant was also not scolded." Not only that, Shen Miao continued her words, "Your son, and your grandson, I have assisted financially in all the areas that could be helped. In the entire western courtyard, you are the senior of all, and I would not treat you as my Momo, but treated you as my family. Trust you, be close with you, think of you. Do you say not?" "Yes," Gui Momo replied. Indeed, it was because Shen Miao was young, and she was easy to coax, so she was able to coax Shen Miao so well that she believed whatever Gui Momo said. In the western courtyard, she was almost half a mistress. "In that case, since I treated you so well, why did you betray me?" Just a light fluttering sentence, and Gui Momo, who was caught in her memories, was so spooked out of her mind that her soul flew away and scattered. She looked up at Shen Miao and said shockingly, "What?" Momo need not show such a shocked expression. Shen Miao laughed. "I originally knew that Momo had thoughts of betraying one's masters, and was astonished thousands of more times, tens of thousands more times than Momo." "Young lady, there must be someone who is inciting disharmony." This servant had never betrayed young lady before. How would this old servant betray young lady? Young lady must believe this old servant. Gui Momo's reacted very quickly, and after a brief moment of panic, she put on an appearance of grievance, and shouted out the injustice, trying to prove her loyalty. "Fine." Shen Miao waved her hands, and there was a touch of impatience on her face. In Wolong Temple, second Shen's means of the vegetarian food and aphrodisiac incense were clever. To let Momo do such a thing, she views Momo as a trusted confidant. When she spoke the last word, Gui Momo's portrait of trying to defend herself became one that could not even speak a single word. She looked at Shen Miao in a daze with eyes full of an inexplicable feeling. Momo is most probably illiterate, and does not know that there is a proverb, "The mantis stalked the cicada," unaware of the aureole behind. Momo is one that served two people, so I would want to listen now. In Momo's eyes, second Shen's means are superior, or are mine a level higher, surpassing hers. "Could it be that you—" Gui Momo spit out those few words of difficulty. "That is right, it is me." Shen Miao's voice was very softly suppressed, so soft that only Gui Momo could hear it. She said, "The person who was supposed to be defiled was me, but why in the end it became eldest sister?" Naturally, it was not a coincidence. It was all me. Guessing it was one matter, and hearing it was another. Gui Momo looked at the young female in front of her fearfully. Shen Miao was half squatting on the ground, looking at her with all smiles. Under the flickering lights, that pair of eyes were as if they were a pair of beast's eyes, that were so bright that it was extraordinary, and also surprisingly terrifying. It was a well-behaved look, but why was it so fearsome? As to why Shen Miao and Shen King were exchanged, Gui Momo kept thinking about this issue when she was thrown into the woodshed. She also guessed that it was Shen Miao who did something, but very quickly dispelled her absurd idea. She watched Shen Miao grow up, and Gui Momo was familiar with her capabilities. She had been stupid and soft-hearted, so she would not be able to do such a thing at all. However, Shen Miao admitted to it with her mouth, and did not even bother to cover it at all. If it was others, Gui Momo would find that the person was too arrogant and stupid, but now she would not see Shen Miao as she did ordinarily. Young lady. She opened her mouth, but did not know what to say. Since Shen Miao already knows of the matter, then she couldn't be saved. Second, Shen's means had always been brutal. Even though Momo is valued, after this matter Momo would not have any future. What a pity. Her words had some regrets, as if she was sympathetic to Gui Momo's suffering experience. Gui Momo was fearful of Ren Wanyun's means, and Shen Miao's words aroused hope in her heart. She fell onto the ground on her knees, and kowtowed to Shen Miao continuously. Young lady, please save this old servant this time. This servant did not purposely want to harm young lady. Second, Shen used this old servant's grandson to threaten this old servant. This old servant was only forced to do so, for master's and Furen's sake, and also for the sake of the over 10 years of service that this old servant had. Young lady should see to save this old servant. Her head knocked onto the floor with a pang pang sound. If it was before, Shen Miao would have respected her, and would not let Gui Momo bow her back that low. But now, she was Empress Shen of Mingqi, and civil and military officials all bowed to her. Of course, she could take the bow of a servant who betrayed her master. The reason I am here tonight is to repay the many years of kindness Gui Momo had shown to me. Shen Miao suddenly said. When Gui Momo heard this, she was suddenly overjoyed, and spoke loudly. This old servant knows that young lady is a kind-hearted person, and one who values relationships and friendship. In the future, Bodhisattva would bless young lady's life to be smooth, and all those who want to harm young lady would all die a horrible death. Shen Miao laughed in her heart. Gui Momo, this grass on top of the wall which sways with every wind, really made one amazed. She also raised her voice. In fact, not to mention those that day in Wolong Temple, did not Gui Momo had a heart-to-heart talk with me? From then onwards, I knew that Gui Momo truly treated me the best in the whole world. Gui Momo was at a loss, as she did not know the meaning behind Shen Miao's words. Just now she hated herself, and now when she turned around she was so appeased. No matter what, Gui Momo felt full of hope, and immediately replied to Shen Miao, yes. This old servant stands at young lady's side from the beginning to the end. Only young lady is this old servant's master. This old servant would be loyal to young lady for her entire life. Suddenly there was a loud noise from the window, as if someone knocked on something. Gui Momo jumped in shock, and looked outside. But how could she see anything from this dark room? She turned to look at Shen Miao after she was unable to see anything, and revealed a miserable expression. Can young lady now get this old servant out of here? This is too dark and humid. This old servant's arms and legs could no longer support. No fear. No need to support for long, since you are going to die. What? Gui Momo suddenly looked up, and stared at Shen Miao at a loss. This old servant does not understand the meaning of young ladies. Just now the person outside was sent by second Shen. It is presumed that she had discovered that I have visited Gui Momo. Shen Miao smiled. So how would Gui Momo have a road to live? This old servant does not understand. Gui Momo unconsciously straightened up her body. There was a faint uneasiness in her heart, but she did know what Shen Miao meant. Does not understand? Shen Miao tilted her head, and thought deeply for a moment. Can Momo remember what words were said loudly just now? Gui Momo heard her words, and thought about them. Suddenly her expression changed, and in an instant, her face paled. She has just now said loudly that she stood at Shen Miao's side from the beginning to the end, and that only Shen Miao was her master. Indeed, those words were just used to coax and caught Shen Miao as she hoped for Shen Miao to save her. But, if Ren Wanyun's people heard these words, then how would they think about the inexplicable situation of Shen Miao and Shen King exchanging rooms that day? They initially suspected that Shen Miao had taken action, but dare not believe it, as they did not know how Shen Miao would be able to predict the future. But, if it was Gui Momo who told the matter to Shen Miao, and schemed with her against Shen King, then everything would be justified. This was not the truth, but, in Ren Wanyun's ears, it would be the truth. Before she could become afraid, Shen Miao had already opened her mouth to speak softly. I want to repay Momo with such a big gift like this. Does Momo think that it is alright? Gui Momo stared at Shen Miao. Only now she discovered that from the beginning of the day till the end, she was led by the nose by Shen Miao. What Shen Miao said, she believed. The relationship between her and Shen Miao was reversed. But Shen Miao was more unpredictable than her, as she could just fall out just in a moment. And she could not guess what Shen Miao's purpose was at all. There is only one purpose on my visit, which is to send Momo up the road, Shen Miao said with a smile, seemingly guessing Gui Momo's doubts. Gui Momo's body trembled. She wanted to cry and shout, but she was unable to produce a single sound. She did not know when did that infant became a young female, and no one had found out yet of this other side of this young female, not even her. The more she wanted to resist and curse, the more she could not help but involuntary shiver when that pair of beastly eyes landed on her. Our Shen family would not keep treacherous people. Even if Momo reaches the road to the netherworld, and becomes a ferocious ghost to seek revenge on me, I would have no fear, and perhaps would even fight with Momo another round. Her words were colder than her smile. It is not I that turned my back on Momo, but is Momo who turned her back on me. It is a pity for Momo's grandson and son. Second Shen always uncompromisingly does things, so perhaps Momo would be able to reunite with them soon. No. Gui Momo's body shook, and her tears and mucus were already flowing all over as she cried pitifully, I beg of you, please save them. I have said early on that I would not waste my effort on a servant that betrayed the master. Shen Miao's words were cruel and cold. Watching with folded arms is already my greatest kindness. She slowly leaned forward, like how she used to tell her secrets to Gui Momo when she was younger, and said lightly, I only came over for one last look. Taking into consideration the over 10 years of master and servant relationship, Gui Momo walked properly the rest of the road. A moving smile bloomed out from her smooth little face. It was originally a lovely and delicate face, but the ruthlessness made one's heart palpitate. Gui Momo still wanted to speak, but she saw that Shen Miao stood up and wore her cloak again. The ends of the cloak drew a pale light in the darkness, as if it was the white paper money that was fluttering by the coffin. When the lantern was carried out the door, and when the door was closed, everything was shrouded into darkness, and desperation seemed to cover everything. Outside, when Beilu and Xuanzhong saw Shen Miao coming out, they were relieved, and supported Shen Miao to leave. After she left, there was a female figure that showed up, and looked towards Shen Miao's back before staring at the closed woodshed door, revealing a look of resentment. After many continuous days of autumn rain, the skies finally cleared up. Everything seemed to have been restored to the usual calmness in the general residence, but, from time to time, there was a medicine scent coming out from the eastern courtyard which reminded others of what had happened in the Shen residence. Shen King's sanity seemed to gradually recover, and she no longer went crazy when she saw others. But Ren Wanyun was afraid that she would be incited again, so she had her kept in Qian Yuan, and did not allow her to come out. She also feared that Shen King would attempt suicide, so she constantly kept watching around her. As such, the residents' affairs were all handed over to Chen Rakayu to manage. Ren Wanyun seldom left her courtyard, and Shen Miao gained a few days of peace and tranquility. However, this did not mean that nothing had happened. After a few days, Gui Momo was finally put to death for the crime of colluding with others to harm Shen King. As of now, in the Shen residence, no one would mention Shen King's matter to Shen Miao. It was not because the matter was settled, but because of the words that Shen Miao spoke in Rongjingtang. They made those people refrain from shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases, and thus dare not take any action. They dare not touch Shen Miao, but still dared to touch Gui Momo. Gui Momo was put to death according to the law in the residence. Generally, when a servant was put to death when they have committed a crime, a bigger crime meant they would be beaten to death, and common crimes would just need to drink a bottle of medication. In short, as long as their life contracts were at the master's hands, no one would care about their life or death. But Gui Momo's death was miserable, as 4 of her limbs were broken when she was still alive. There was not an inch of a decent bone left in her entire body, and all 7 holes of her body were bleeding, making her look atrocious. Even the servant who carried the body dare not look at the corpse's appearance, but Ren Wanyun still called Shen Miao to collect the corpse. Ren Wanyun's maid, Xiang Lan, came over to say, Furen had said that even though Gui Momo was put to death upon committing an offense, after all, she was 5th young lady's servant, so 5th young lady would still need to make funeral arrangements, so Gui Momo's corpse has been placed in the west courtyard. 5th young lady quickly goes and take a look. Most likely, everyone wanted to see Shen Miao's panic-stricken expression, since all the servants in Shen's residence knew that Gui Momo was Shen Miao's close confidant. Now that she had come to a tragic end, one would fear that Shen Miao would be broken-hearted. Most likely Ren Wanyun also thought so, and felt that Shen Miao would blame herself for Gui Momo's death. No one knew that Shen Miao would walk up to Gui Momo's corpse in front of all the servants in the western courtyard, and lift the white cloth covering the corpse without even a change of color on her face. When she saw how miserable the body was, and her brows did not even wrinkle at all, Xiang Lan was surprised at Shen Miao's calmness, but saw Shen Miao coldly cry out. Gui Momo acted like a tyrant in the western courtyard, bullied those below her, and hoodwinked the master, and was a rampant and domineering person. This kind of servant, even if she did not commit any mistake, the western courtyard would not take in. All of you take a good look today. If in the future anyone were to learn from Gui Momo, this would be the result. Most of the people in western courtyard were 2nd and 3rd household spies, and in the past would see Gui Momo as the highest, but now seeing how Gui Momo died so tragically, and how Shen Miao was so cold about it, a wave of fear started to rise in their hearts. When Xiang Lan saw the scene, she did not felt alright, as she wanted to scare Shen Miao, but who knew Shen Miao took Gui Momo as an example of power. She immediately returned to Qian Yuan, and informed Ren Wanyun of the matter. This is bad. I had fallen into a trap. When Ren Wanyun heard about it, her hand loosened up, and the teacup fell to the ground, and smashed into pieces. Furen Kaiju was somewhat uncertain. Ren Wanyun gritted her teeth. Gui Momo was just a raft. It seems that little slut had long wanted to get rid of Gui Momo, but borrowed our hands to do it. And now she even consolidated her power in the western courtyard. That little slut is shrewd. Ren Wanyun was not stupid, but because of Shen King's matter, she had inevitably lost the previously calmness she had. As she was her mother. That night the people who went to look for Gui Momo saw Shen Miao going in to see Gui Momo, and also heard some portion of the conversation of Gui Momo declaring her loyalty to Shen Miao. After this was mentioned to Ren Wanyun, she was sure that what had happened to Shen King was because Gui Momo colluded with Shen Miao to change the person in the room. With such a thought in her heart, she hated Shen Miao and Gui Momo like a torrential flood. Since Shen Miao cannot be touched for the time being, Gui Momo, as a servant, can be touched. So she uses the most brutal way to torture Gui Momo to death. Initially, she thought that when Shen Miao saw Gui Momo's dead body she would be upset, but, after listening to Xiang Lan's words, Ren Wanyun knew that she has being toyed by Shen Miao. Everything was a ruse that Shen Miao set up. Shen Miao put on a better show of murdering others with a borrowed knife than anyone else. Ren Wanyun had been in the inner courtyard drifting with the wind and current for so many years that those concubines of Shen Gui would be settled fittingly, but now she was repeatedly defeated at the hands of a silly little girl. In Ren Wanyun's mind, this was anger that could even be described as fury. Was the letter to Prince Yu of first rank sent? Ren Wanyun asked. It is sent, but, Furen, if Master knows about it, he would get angry. Kaiju carefully replied. As with Shen King's matter, Shen Gui thought of thousands of ways to hide it from Prince Yu, wishing that he would not discover it at all. But, Ren Wanyun could not wait for Prince Yu to discover it immediately, because with Prince Yu's temperament, if anyone were to play any tricks under his eyelids, that person would not have a good death. Even if she quarreled with Shen Gui, she must also take revenge for Shen King. Shen Miao dares to threaten the entire Shen family, then would she dare to threaten Prince Yu of the first rank? I want her to die without a burial site. Ren Wanyun clenched her teeth as she spoke. Young lady is playing chess again. Beilu shook her head as she was somewhat puzzled. What is the meaning of playing chess alone? What can be done other than playing chess? Xuanzhong glanced at the person in front of the table, and said grieving, confined the entire day, and even being unable to go out to the courtyard. If this goes on, nothing can be done during the day. Shush, Beilu whispered, you better not speak. Young lady is already not happy about the confinement, you better not mention it, and provoke her anger. Xuanzhong mumbled. Our young lady has a good temperament, and would not get angry. Speaking of which, they have not seen Shen Miao getting angry for a long time, not to say anger, not even a shred of emotion. The Shen Miao of the past, even though she was an idiot, her moods were very obvious. Happy was happy, sadness was sadness. But, now, the personal maids could not read her. People always said that one's growth would be gradual, but, Shen Miao's change seemed to have been completed overnight. From simple, and weak to calm, and unwavering. No one knew what changed her. Beilu. Just as they were speaking, Beilu heard Shen Miao calling her name, and quickly went up. Go, and find a time to pawn those gold jewelry in the silver jewelry box that was placed in the cabinet, she said without even turning her head. Yes. Beilu quickly replied before she became surprised, but, young lady, a box of jewelry was only pawned yesterday, and this is the last box. It is of no bother. Shen Miao put down the chess piece. After all, it would not be used. After pawning it, pass the money to Jing's, and call Gu Yu over. Beilu agreed, but, there were some doubts in her heart. Shen Miao was anxious to pawn the jewelry away like she was in urgent need of money. What was the money for? Gui Huolu, also known as Happy Building, was the largest restaurant in the Ding capital, and was located in the heart of the bustling area. Direct opposite of it was the house of courtesans. After high officials and noble people finished their meals in Gui Huolu, they would probably go to the Huolu opposite to look for beauty and happiness. There were many ranks of pleasure quarters. The superior it was, the higher the level was, and those who were at the highest level were those famous courtesans that sold their talents, and not their bodies. Below them were some young ladies with famous reputations, and the lowest was the 9th-ranked brothels. This kind of brothel was not eligible to be called Ilu, or Yuan, and could only be called Ban or Ziachu. Sanfu Ban was facing opposite of Gui Huolu, and it was the lowest of all brothels. Most often the ones that enter and leave that place were those lowly laborers, and often there would be people who would throw those sickly and near-death young ladies to the streets. Those wandering beggars would carry these young ladies back, perhaps to vent, or perhaps their clothes could be sold for a copper coin. Anyhow, compared to the exquisite Gui Huolu, Sanfu Ban was simple hell on earth. By the window of somewhere in Gui Huolu, the spotless white sleeves of a young man's were seen as he frowned while looking at Sanfu Ban below, and saw that someone had thrown some new girls in. The girls were crying and shouting non-stop, seemingly servants of some family that were sent over. Some young maids were beautiful, and jealous matriarchs would sell them to Sanfu Ban to prevent them from climbing up to the bed. Truly ruthless. The white-clad gentleman shook his head, and said, although the tone was filled with pity, there was no trace of thoughts or reach out to lend a hand. And that young gentleman that was facing him was wearing purple, and was filled with an overbearing extravagance. He only poured himself wine, and lightly said, people had already entered the residence of Prince Yu, and it was yet unknown if it can be found or not. If it was not found, then what? The white-clad gentleman turned his head and looked at him. Carry on searching. The purple-clad youth smiled, and that evil smile was so exceptionally handsome that the courtesan playing the string instrument at the side could not help but lose herself, and played the wrong note. When the white-clad gentleman saw that, he teased with a laugh, Z-san, your charm is getting greater now. Beautiful women favor you, how can I live? He gave another long sigh. This white-clad gentleman was also very handsome, but, upon comparison with the purple-clad youth, there was less of that languid extravagance. That youth's expression was lazy, but that pair of eyes were extremely sharp, as if it was the scorching sun in the skies, and was dazzling from birth. By standing at his side, naturally, all the radiance was covered up. Goyen, if you like, how about upon return, I will bestow you an entire residence of them. Zi Jingxing shot him a glance. Never mind, that white-clad gentleman called Goyen quickly waved his hands, and laughed bitterly. Beautiful women can be viewed remotely, and not to play with. I do not have any excess energy. As for you, he drank a mouthful of wine. Who are a mid-youth when one is unrestrained, how would there not be any close female confidant? If you want, in this Mingqi, there would be a large number of people queuing. Close female confidant. Zi Jingxing smiled. How would one know if it was just a skull with red rouge? Stop speaking, as though it was that scary. Goyang pointed at the pleasure quarters opposite. Look at those cute young ladies in the higher levels. What skull this and that? So uninteresting. Zi Jingxin looked towards where his eyes were at, when he suddenly paused, and surprise flashed across his eyes. How is it him?